I'm fired up because today is, I think, the best thing that you can have in sports in this country. A Team Canada hockey game with substantial stakes. And I'm very curious about the people who went into this tournament looking at it with their noses up, going like, it's a meaningless tournament. There's only 4 teams. This is fake. It's made up. It's lame. It's nothing. Interesting, because I've watched all of these games, and I got to tell you, sure has not felt fake to me. But tonight is so much different. Tonight, the stakes are even higher. And I got to say, first of all, credit to the players, because turns out there's a pretty simple formula to all of this stuff. If the players care, the fans will care. You see this kind of a product, you see what it means to these guys, and you, in turn, feel the same stakes because this means something to them. And when they say it, they're not just putting on airs. What this means to USA Hockey and what this means to Canada is vastly different than what it has meant in the past. In the past, these games have been, okay, it's a rivalry game. Okay, these teams are going to hate each other. But if Canada loses, it's a fluke. If Canada loses, it's a choke. They blew it. They didn't play up to their potential. This game, these two teams are dead even. In fact, some people are probably thinking that the USA Hockey is materially better than Canada. People are talking themselves into, you know what? This is a deeper program. They're better in net. They've got a more talented blue line. Go on down the line. They're more physical. Those conversations we never had before. And what America is playing for tonight is trying to snatch our soul. They are trying to take our soul, our countries, and that is powerful. And those are stakes, my friends. That is the reality of tonight's game. And so you can say it's a fake tournament all you want till you're blue in the face. That is what is going on tonight. And they know it, and we know it, and God, I cannot wait to see it. Jackie Redmond of the Jackie Redmond Show, proud Canadian, who, by the way, the one good thing about me getting stuck in airports in the States and hotels is that I got to watch my friend work. I watched her on both the TNT games. She joins me now. What's up?
Listening to your rant just made me so nervous, but also like an excited nervous, but nervous because
I'm nervous too.
I agree with everything you're saying. I truly, and I love what I do, and I'm blessed to do it, and I still love the game, and I'm passionate about the game, but it has been a very, very, very long time since I have felt this level of nervousness combined with excitement before a game. And that is, you know, everyone knows I'm a Leafs fan. That's fine. I grew up that way. I don't let it impact the way that I do my job when I cover the Leafs, which is very rare. But even Leafs playoff games, Game 7, throw it all out. I don't care. I have not felt this way about a hockey game in a very, very, very long time. And I absolutely love it. Like, I'm so pumped. I'm so glad that we're doing this tournament. I was someone, when they originally announced it, that was like, are people going to care? Like, does it matter? I was one of those skeptics. I was, hand in the air. I wasn't sure. I'm so glad that I was absolutely dead wrong. But yeah, it's there's a lot on the line, and Team USA has been waiting for a while for the opportunity to prove that their program has improved leaps and bounds. The game in the United States, thanks to USA Hockey, and by the way, the women's game and Team USA's women's team winning on the Olympic stage, has done a lot for that too on the women's side. But they've been steadily improving there in terms of the amount of people that play hockey, the resources that are put into USA Hockey, but they haven't had an opportunity to prove how much it's grown, and this is it. So it's scary. It is scary on this side of the border. I'm nervous.
Yeah, the thing is about the women's game is that it's been close for a very long time, right? Like, there has not been a natural, distinct pecking order in that sport. It's been, at times, actually, where Canada, with their international success, has been the clutch team, right? The team that's come through in the big moments, even though maybe on paper they didn't have the same amount of talent. With this, like I said, this is the first time where the United States actually has their favorites. They're favorites in this game on betting markets, and rightfully so. They won the first game. They do have on paper, outside of the forward groups, I think that they're better. Like, they just are. Yep. And this is with, their country missing a couple of pretty key guys now. and 2 of their defensemen. And so I think that's going to be, or this is why I wasn't confused about how this tournament would feel and why the stakes would be high, is because it is a real showcase of how much the rest of the world is caught up. Like, yeah, Canada dominated Sweden to start that hockey game, but ultimately that's a country of 10 million people, and them coming back, it shouldn't have happened. Even the same thing, dominate Finland, let them get back into it late, but the world is deeper, the world is closer, America is closer, Canada has
100%.
lost its grip. And to me, like, one of the things about tonight and why I think this is so important is that they caught the cycle to still be able to bring in the Sidney Crosbys of the world, to have Drew Doughty on this team, to have Brad Marchand on this team, and to be able to kind of showcase to younger Canadians and to the younger crop of players that's on this team, like, hey, this is the standard. Remember the standard, because it's like right in front of you, that this shouldn't materially change. And I'm hoping, really deeply, truly hoping, that watching these games and watching this passion and watching this intensity is going to reignite something that I think has been missing with Canada's program over this time, and why having best-on-best tournaments are not just so important for our country, but for the game in general, because it showcases the thing that's most important to this sport, which is much like in this climate of people talking about the NBA and the All-Star game and the player care level, hockey is a sport of passion, and that is when it's played at its very, very best. And you are seeing that between these two countries, and it's impossible to look away. You could not care about the sport. You may have learned about it yesterday. If you're watching this game, you're going to feel something if you're from one of these two countries.
100%, because they're fighting for something, right? And you can feel the genuine, authentic passion from the players and the fact that they're just putting everything on the line to try to win it, even in the round robin, right? Like Team USA, if they lose tonight, right, we're going to have a conversation about, you know, did they make all these sacrifices in the round robin to make that statement against Team Canada? And we all loved it, right? One of the best hockey games I've ever watched in my life. But did they do it to win the battle but lose the war? Like, is it going to cost them in the end because they don't have Charlie McAvoy, who was a monster in that game? I don't care if the Kachucks play, don't play, they're sick, they're not, whatever. They're banged up, right? Like, there was a price that they paid to win that game, and it worked. But is it going to work tonight as well? Have they sacrificed too much to make the statement in that game? I think is a huge conversation, but I think it lends itself to the point that you're making, which is that the passion here is undeniable on both sides and for all 4 teams, I would say, right? I think Sweden proved that in their final game of the round robin with absolutely nothing to play for. And they fought. They played really hard because they're a proud country. They consider themselves one of the hockey powerhouses in the world, and they're not happy with their tournament. And they wanted to show that they at least take pride in their game and are going to play with nothing on the line. I'm going off on a bit of a tangent, but, you know, John Tortorella, how many years ago was it that he said there's no hate in hockey anymore? We need more hate back in the game. And he got ripped for it, by the way, by some people, which is ridiculous because I just think the word hate, people overreact to it. But he was right. The reason people outside of hockey the reason I was getting texts last Saturday night from people that I know actively do not watch the sport and in fact ridicule the sport at times and make friendly jokes about the fact that, like, I cover hockey and I should go cover a real sport, were texting me watching that game. And why was that? Because it felt like there was hate in that game. It felt like these guys wanted to kill each other, despite the fact that there are numerous teammates playing against each other in that game. And I actually have it on pretty good authority from being at the Four Nations tournament and hearing from people that would know that this isn't just, you know, fueled by the political climate right now. It's not just about that. It's not just about playing for the country. There is legitimate beef between Canada and the USA and some of the players on those rosters. There are guys on those teams that actually do not like some of the people on the other side. And I think we're seeing that come to the surface as well. And that, I don't care. Like, yes, it's good for the game. We do need hate in the game. John Tortorella was right. He was right, and he should have never been criticized for saying that because we just saw the proof is in the pudding. When they hate each other, when they want it, when they're passionate, it captivates everybody, even people that aren't necessarily the biggest hockey fans.
No,
so
I totally agree with
awesome.
you. I totally agree with you, and I actually think that, again, what I hope is Sometimes I think I like get these like, okay, too grandiose ideas, right? Like I get a little bit too much of, I can be too much of a dreamer at times with these things. I get very romantic about sports. I believe in the power
Same
of
thing.
sport deeply. And so sometimes I feel like I'm in a haze of it and I want to know what other people actually think. But when it comes to this, I actually will even take it a step further. I don't really think the political climate has like anything to do with this whatsoever. Like truly. Yeah, there's been the booing of the American anthem, and some people are talking about that. I think it adds a bit of a charge in terms of national pride for some people, but ultimately, it's like you see Canada's best on best, and the players put this kind of energy and effort into something, and it makes you tingle in your Canadian heart, right? Especially if you grew up caring about the sport. But the second layer of it is that hockey's having a moment right now. I've seen clips from all the major networks where there's different people coming on talking about how hockey is winning because they had this tournament across from an NBA All-Star game where it was completely passionate and overly corporate and too sanitized and didn't work at all, didn't hit and resonate with any people whatsoever. And it's a big deal that this tournament's numbers are the same as what the NBA All-Star games were from a television standpoint. Like, that's a pretty big statement for hockey. But what I hope is the lasting legacy of this in terms of moving towards the NHL is that the players, I know they want to be on these teams, but that they're paying attention to this and that there is some recognition like, whoa, we have to try to you can't replicate the stakes of this. You can't replicate the energy like this over the course of an 82-game schedule, but a reminder that hockey cannot simply exist as a skill sport. And that if it goes down that path, and I think the game is actually getting heavier. I think that the game is starting to regress back to the mean a little bit in terms of the direction it was going over the last couple of years. But just a reminder to everyone involved with this thing that you have to have the passion for the sport. You have to be able to drop the gloves. There is a place in the game for a fight. There is a place in the game for big hits. That hockey is best when the boards are rattling, not when they're just standing still and it's skill game that is being played on the perimeter. That when you have a complete performance like this where guys are caring at this level, that people are going to watch. And that if you continue to do this, you are going to be able to pluck more fans towards hockey. And that this is such an indictment of them not having international play for a decade because we really did undersell some sports. I actually don't think international play matters as much. Like, to me, it's not that big of a deal if the NBA misses Olympic cycles, frankly, because Team USA is going to dominate. But for this sport to be able to showcase these games and get new eyeballs on it is of critical import for like the state of the game, for the players of the game, for the fans of the game, and the growth of the game. And so I'm coming out of this being like, I really think hockey is going to be in a better state no matter what the outcome is of this game because of the play of this game and the care of the players that are inside of it.
100%. I mean, there's no arguing with anything that you've said. And I hate to be the person, too, that's like...
We're both dreamers, though.
These days,
we're both dreamers, though. So we're like, 100%. All these things are happening.
Listen. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one, is what I thought when you said that. Because you know what? I think most of us that are as passionate enough about sport to attempt to have a career in it, we're all dreamers, or we wouldn't be doing what we're doing. So anybody, that is as passionate about hockey as we are, that cares about these games, that never misses their team playing an 82-game season, like they can front and act like they don't romanticize, but we all do it. It's why we love it. It's because it gives us something to believe in. It gives us something to root for, right? It's also the reason that we love exactly what you're talking about as hockey fans. The physicality, the boards rattling, guys sacrificing their bodies and potentially their regular season to try to win this thing and prove that they're the best is because that it emulates life, right? Like life is not just about, I'm the most talented, so life's going to be easy for me. Wrong, absolutely wrong. Doesn't matter. Like life defeats everybody at some point, And so I think when you see people fighting for something, despite being the best in the world at what they do, they're on some level, this might sound ridiculous, but like on some level, you kind of relate to that. You relate to that fight, to that journey for reaching the top of the mountain. And so when you watch a game where it's quiet and there's no one in the lower bowl and there's a lot of skill going on, but the second something gets hard, a player turns away or tries to avoid it, you don't relate to that because that's not real life. Real people are out here, fighting to make ends meet, to buy their groceries. Life gets hard and people fight. Most people, they try to fight. And so I'm getting a little poetic here, but I do think there's something to that about trying to, relate to what's happening. I think life imitates art, art imitates life, all that nonsense, but it's true. And I think that's why we love the game when it's at its best. And it's at its best when people are fighting to the death to try to win a hockey game. It's why playoff hockey trumps it's not even the same game as the regular season. It's not even close. But I do hope, because I think there's also a conversation to be had about, we always talk about like old school players versus new school players and like this generation and that generation. And maybe I'm just an old lady like raising her fist to the sky, but like I do think there is an element of truth to the fact that younger players are raised differently, right? Raised in an age of like participation trophies and, playing for, fame or money and not maybe necessarily for the love of the game at a certain point. And I do think that there is an argument to be made that like these players watching this that maybe aren't on these teams, or maybe some of the players that are on some of these rosters, experiencing how incredible it can be when you put the money aside and the endorsements and the media markets and the criticism and the this and the that and the 100 points and can't score in big games, whatever it is. Like when you put that all aside and you actually just fight for the game, it draws people in because they can relate to that. And so I've kind of gone on this crazy tangent. I don't know if I'm making sense.
It does. It does make sense.
I do think hopefully it inspires, right? I hope that it inspires the players that do maybe shrink when the game gets hard, because there's a lot of them, and they're not just on the Maple Leafs. They exist all over the league. The Leafs just get more attention than anybody else.
Sure,
but they're there
I agree.
because the game has been about speed and skill, and that's great. But you know what I loved? Even as a girl rooting for Team Canada, I love that Charlie McAvoy was not just able to check Connor McDavid, but to do it in the fashion with which he did, because it proves that even the fastest, most talented player in the game can be hit, and he took it. Like McDavid took it. He didn't whine. Like he took the hit. That's it. So, I don't know. I'm going on and on.
No,
so
you and I, but we're both driving at the same thing, which is that this has been really important for hockey in this country. Like this has been Canada's sport since 1875. Okay. And this is the first time where it's really felt threatened, like someone else is coming for that and trying to be at the top of the mountain. The game has also gone a long period without international play, and I do believe some people have forgotten the import of this, that year over year, some fans have been gaslit into the idea of like, oh, well, what's the NHL supposed to do? It's a business, and why is it taking an international break? And even for this tournament, there was a lot of consternation from fans going, well, what if someone gets injured? What if this happens? Like, wow, now the schedule is weird. Now it's not as fair to the other teams. Like they're caring about their regular season hockey because they'd forgotten what it was like to watch these games. And that because we're getting these games and because we're getting this effort level and literally the best hockey that you will ever see, right? Like this is as good as it can possibly be, is best on best, loaded all-star rosters full of players playing for their country and playing with that kind of a passion and spark and skill. You don't see it like this. And it's a reminder that it's the measuring stick and it's what this sport can be when it is this way, when we do get these opportunities. Yeah. And to me, part of what should not be lost in all of this is that we were able to at least capture the end of Sidney Crosby, the end of Drew Doughty, the end of Brad Marchand, these types of players who have been the measuring stick guys, who have been part of the golden eras of Canadian hockey. I would say Doughty and Crosby more specifically because like they were on the team in Sochi that was so dominant. Yeah. And seeing again how the rest of the world has caught up and trying to recapture Canadian exceptionalism. And what is cool about tonight is we kind of get to see this really deep, incredible, talented American team and see if Canada still has that X factor, that little bit of extra will, that little bit of extra clutch, that little bit of extra fearlessness, and whether that can impact the roster and whether or not they can recapture kind of that Canadian style through those players, that Canadian standard through those players without losing it through the next generation. Because to me, and I want to get your thought on this, The one thing that I've been observing from afar is it really feels like the American swagger and identity has changed drastically. Like they know how good they are and they're playing to it. And Canada's has looked a little bit shakier. It's been a little bit more of what other countries' identity has been, which is, hey, we've got a couple superstar players that we're going to lean on and hope to carry us through some big moments. But ultimately, the rest of the roster doesn't really feel like it's in sync the way that the Americans do.
Yeah, no, Team USA is not just confident; they're cocky. Like they're mean. They have tapped into something in that room and with that particular roster that is intangible, and it's what makes them really scary. Like they are a team in every sense of the word, and I want to be able to describe it with specific examples, but it's just a feeling, right? Like anyone that's listening, and JD, I know you played sports growing up, like anyone that has played hockey growing up and been around sports, there's just a vibe, right? Like when you have a team where it's just there's something that clicks, and for whatever reason, you are united and you mesh together quickly, and as a result, you naturally have better chemistry. You naturally have more confidence. I feel like Team USA has that because I've been on teams in my life growing up where we were supposed to be amazing, but we just weren't for whatever reason. And I think Team USA does have that intangible feel and swagger and cockiness to them. It's part of what makes them so scary. It's part of why they were able to step on the ice on Saturday night against Team Canada, a game that could have intimidated them, a game where they might have, in other years or different situations, they might have wanted to be conservative, have that sort of feel it out first 5 minutes that we see so often in game one of a series in the Stanley Cup playoffs, right? It's like that. Nobody wants to make a mistake. They're nervous, first few minutes of game 7, whatever. But we didn't see that. We saw a team that was not intimidated by the opportunity, not intimidated by the stage, not allowing the stakes or what they wanted to prove so badly get in the way of them going out there and being who they are and playing to the identity that I think better than any other Four Nations team in this tournament, even better than Canada, like Team USA has an identity, and you can see it and you can feel it. They are physical. They are mean. They are big. They defend. They have an awesome goalie, but they're tough, right? And I don't just mean because of the fights. Tough. They're not afraid to drop the gloves, obviously, but toughness is about more than that. They aren't backing down. They aren't worried about sending Drew Doughty, who, by the way, gets sent into the 10th row with that hit on Saturday night. But Drew Doughty thrives when that crap happens to him. He loves it when someone gets under his skin or talks trash or, you know what I mean? That wakes Doughty up. But Team USA isn't afraid of that. They're not afraid of hitting the best player in the world. And sometimes I know it sounds silly, but there is an intimidation level there. And Team USA doesn't have that. They are rising to the challenge. What's the scariest thing about them is that they know the opportunities in front of them, and you can see that they're ready for it. Because there's a difference, right? And they seem ready to do it. So we'll see what happens, but their vibes are immaculate. Even their room, right? They're playing classic rock in their room all the time. They're having fun. They're serious. We know that. They're focused. But I said this to someone the other day. There's a looseness about Team USA that terrifies me.
Yeah.
They're just they're loose but focused. And I can't say that about Team Canada with the same level of confidence that I can say it about Team USA. And I was around these teams, so I feel confident in putting that thought out there.
Yeah, but again, with the Americans, it doesn't feel like there's a gap between eras on the team like there does with Canada. With Canada,
yes, they're so cohesive.
Yes,
they are so on the same page, right? One of the most frustrating things about that USA-Canada game was, especially late in the game, and John Cooper even said this, he felt like his team was trying to manufacture plays that weren't there. And that's never a good thing. But what it tells me is that on a team with so much skill and so much talent, and I think more game breakers up front than Team USA, was a team that started trying to do it individually, because if you're trying to manufacture something that's not there, it means that you're not working in tandem with your line mates, right? So I didn't like that about the last game. I think they worked on that in their final game by changing the lines around. I think Point makes way more sense with McDavid than Marner does.
Yep.
It should have been that way from the jump, I think, because Point's got the speed. Marner likes to create. Like, it's harder for him to do that when McDavid likes to have the puck as well. Like, I just think it's way better. But yeah, let me ask you this. I'm curious your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you think Canada, if anything, needs to do differently in this game against Team USA compared to Saturday? Like, what is the adjustment, if there is one?
Well, one is I think that they're going to need more contributions from other players on this team. One is going to be like just having Cale Makar is going to make, I think, a huge difference in terms of the way that they drive offense. So, like, that's one guy. But the thing that's been kind of, I would say, startling to me about this tournament so far for Canada is that it's really felt like there's McKinnon, there's McDavid, and they are just brilliant, right? They are just driving play, and they are creating these dangerous opportunities. I think Point has really popped. I totally agree with you. I don't think Marner and McDavid work together because both guys need the puck to be most effective. Yeah. Like Marner, when he doesn't have it on his stick, what is he necessarily, right? And I have more of a thought on this later. I don't necessarily think the demotion was just simply because, like, oh, he's not playing well. I think that the fit was more uncomfortable than they realized. The idea of, like, trying to turn the two of them into this possession line that was going to play off each other, that didn't really materialize. But I need to see other players pop in terms of being threatening. Like, where are the other guys on this team? Because for the first time, I think ever, what has happened with this roster is we've been spending a lot of energy talking about whether we built it the right way to face the Americans, and that's never been a thing. Like, we've had conversations about who should be on the ice before. Like, there's been, should PK Subban be the 8th defenseman in Sochi? Okay? We've had, should Todd Bertuzzi be on the Turin team? Shouldn't Wayne Gretzky take a shootout opportunity? Like, we've had player personnel decision convos, but we've never had it like this where it's been like, well, you should have taken Tom Wilson and Mark Scheifele to be able to adjust to the Americans. It's supposed to be they adjust to us. And right now, I'm seeing the top-tier brilliance of Canada, but I'm not really seeing the layers of attack from the other talented forward groups that are supposed to kind of be Canada's tipping point in this tournament. I need to see more from Mitch Marner, flat out. Like, I need to see him create and maybe even score. I think Sidney Crosby is
he needs to be a threat, right?
Yeah.
He needs to be a threat.
Yeah.
And Mitch Marner, I know the overtime goal, and I was very happy that he was able to do that because I thought maybe getting that in the first game of the tournament would kind of take a little bit of pressure off. I fully was like, F yes, Mitch Marner's got the monkey off his back. He scored in a big game in a high-pressure situation, OT. Now, like, he's free. He's free. He's out of the cage. Like, let's go. And it didn't result in what I thought it might. And go figure, their next game's against Team USA, who are big and mean and getting in your face and taking your space away. And we've all heard this before, making it hard. You're making it hard. It's going to be hard. You're on the biggest stage. It's going to be hard. So I agree with you on that. I hate kind of singling out Mitch Marner because we just do it all the time, but, like, there's a reason. And he's not the only one. He's not the only one. Like, you are right. When Team Canada is succeeding and winning in this tournament, I know it's only 3 games, but, like, all the goals are being scored by the same people, right? And then things get a little hairy against Finland in the final game at the end, and Sidney Crosby does what he does. But, like, will that be enough? If it's just those 3 players against Team USA, I don't think it's enough because they have a really good goalie. They have a good blue line, and they have a very, very solid approach to how they're playing.
That's what I mean.
It clearly is successful.
I want to see more players feel like they are making a significant impact on this game than Point, McDavid, McKinnon, Makar, and Crosby. Because so far, those have been the guys to me that consistently, I know Sid had the tough game against the USA, but ultimately, 2 of these games, he's been spectacular. I would argue he was Canada's most important player in the first one. He has the like defining play weirdly against Finland, which is a huge hit and then a goal
So
at center ice. It's like I've never seen such an important empty netter like that. I was like, wow.
You know what I was so annoyed about?
Yeah.
So in the reporter role, because we're doing a post-game interview on the bench with a player on the winning team, right? Like you have to be back of house with a few minutes to go in regulation.
You missed
That's
it.
how it works. I didn't see it.
That's interesting because I saw your post-game interview with, it was McKinnon that you had.
Yeah. I heard it, but I didn't see it. And so I was super frustrated about that. But that's just a selfish complaint right there. But anyways.
No, it's fine. But that's I think that we're both kind of tapping on the same thing, which is tonight it's going to be, do you get a big goal from Mark Stone? Do you get a moment from Mitch Marner, right? Like, does Brad Marchand find a way to score an ugly goal? Do you end up getting a contribution from
Sam Reinhart?
Yeah, exactly.
Sam Reinhart.
Exactly.
Let's go.
Reinhart, I need you to do something tonight. Need the other guys on the roster to be more noticeable during their shifts. Got to feel like this is a collection of superstars in a way that, frankly, I have not felt that way. And part of this, I will say, is like, God, rooting for McDavid and getting to cheer for him is just so insane. And like McKinnon's been brilliant too. And like that Finland game, it was kind of a similar thing. But it is insane to watch McDavid against the world's other best players in a must-win situation and go, I can't believe how much better you are than everyone else. I'm blown away by how much you stand out and how the rest of these guys look like fourth liners compared to you. It's insane how good he is.
It's insane.
So this brings me to the Maple Leafs of it all. Because you're like, oh, I hate that we're singling them out. But here's the thing. This is a Toronto show, and I actually make zero apologies for this whatsoever. So Matthews claims he's got like a new injury, which is whatever. I think that if you're hurt or injured in hockey, like that old cliche, that really applies. I really don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear any excuses about injuries or who's banged up or whatever. Like, how much has Sidney Crosby mentioned how he's beat up? Like, has he? Has there been?
No, and he never does.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's been beat up a lot.
And he obviously is, right? Like, he's obviously compromised. He's not 100%.
Well, here's the thing. Look at Team USA, right? Charlie McAvoy not going to play in this game. Huge piece for them. And we find out yesterday through all the chaos of covering this Charlie McAvoy, Quinn Hughes situation, which to me has been absolutely hilarious following the Quinn Hughes stuff. Like, I was laughing. I was like, oh, you insiders know nothing. Like, it's amazing. But anyways, it comes out, right, that Charlie McAvoy suffered the injury in the Finland game. Mm-hmm. That's where he hurt himself. But he goes out against Team Canada, and what does he do? Warrior. I didn't hear him talking about an injury. Yep. Nobody even knew he had it, and goes out and plays the most physical game, probably one of the best games I've seen Charlie McAvoy play in a minute. Mm-hmm. Like, he went out there was no excuses. He made a huge impact. So many people talking about McAvoy coming out of that game for a multitude of different reasons. And so, Matthews might be hurt. That's fine. But like, a lot of guys are hurt.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I'm not going to give the excuse.
Drew Doughty just came back 2 weeks ago. The guy's played like 3 NHL games. Mm-hmm. Him not being there is a whole other conversation. Like, thank goodness he is, considering the circumstances. Mm-hmm. But like, I'm sure Doughty, coming to this tournament, as hard as he worked and as much as he got a couple of games in before and played a lot of time in those games, like, he's still coming off a pretty big injury, right?
Yep.
Like, I'm sure he doesn't feel wonderful, if I had to guess.
No, and that's all I'm driving at here is that I'm not going to be looking at this and saying, well, Matthews was banged up, so I'm not going to be critical of the way that he plays whatsoever. And with Marner, it's the same thing. He has this incredibly clutch moment. It's a big moment for Canada. It absolutely has meaning. Like, I've seen some people try to disparage it with the 3-on-3, and I'm going, part of the reason Canada's through the next round is because he scored that goal, right? And yes, Crosby gets the assist and Crosby makes it back to him, but it's a wonderful shot and it's a wonderful play by Mitch. But I was with you in the sense of, okay, he's going to feel a sense of belonging here. He was spending his summer playing with McKinnon, playing with Crosby, and it was for a short period of time. But either way, he was like invited to be with those guys. And I thought, okay, he's going to establish himself as kind of a potentially core member of this team. And what an important opportunity for him. But so it's a small sample. I'm recognizing that. But there's no way that you could tell me watching this tournament so far that it's like Mitch Marner has looked like one of the most important players on the planet. Mitch Marner looks like a guy who's trying to, break into a new echelon of a contract, right? And for Matthews, it's kind of a similar thing where it's like, hey, man, the game is super physical and the game has been a battle for these players and you're not finding your spots and you're not finding the back of the net. And maybe I've just cursed Canada with that, but I actually do think that even in a small data set, that's what playoffs are, that this game is really important for these two players. Not necessarily like, of course, it's important that they score, but I want to feel their presence in this game in a way that I just frankly didn't the last time these two teams played. And I don't want to hear from the people who are like, Matthews was spectacular defensively. It's like, he's not Anthony Cirelli.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, he's Austin Matthews.
Yeah, he's a goal scorer.
Yeah,
he's an elite goal scorer. That's what he's there to do, right? Like, okay, we can praise his defensive prowess, and he did have some great defensive plays in the last game against Team Canada. However, like, Matthews gets paid to score goals. That's why he's Austin Matthews, right? Like, that's why he is who he is. So I don't disagree with you. I do think that he was impactful in smaller ways in the last game against Canada, but
sure.
I do think that it's important for him to come up clutch for Team USA.
Does he feel like
tonight.
the captain right now to you?
No.
Yeah.
No.
There you go.
No, I agree. 100%. Great way to put it. It's a great question, and I think the majority of people, if they're being honest, answer the question the same way. So, yes, in terms of the Leafs and their not their regular season, and their postseason success this year, you want both of these players to have an amazing tournament, to come up clutch in the biggest game that they've played in a while, right? And to be impactful and to score goals and to find the score sheet and not look overwhelmed by the moment. That would be the worst case. Even more so than maybe not putting up points is if we're watching a game where Marner looks overwhelmed. You know what I mean? Like, that's the worst case. But the best case is that both of these guys are able to provide some sort of tangible value to their team that has us coming out of the game talking about them, right?
Yep.
It's hard to do when McDavid and McKinnon and Crosby are on the ice, but hey, the Tkachuk brothers found a way to do it. Brandon Hagel found a way to have everybody talking about him. We haven't had that for Austin Matthews yet, where we've come out of a game and, like, that's everyone's talking about Austin Matthews, right? Marner had it because of the OT goal. But even that came with, he wasn't the story coming out of game one for Canada. Sidney Crosby was, because he's the oldest player in the tournament and still proved that he's probably the biggest gamer in terms of doing all the things that you need him to do to get to carry you to the win. Like, I think Crosby was the MVP of game one. But we haven't had either of those Leafs be the story coming out of a game yet, right?
Yeah,
I think that's fair to say.
But the why, when you mention how it's like, well, it's hard when there's McKinnon and McDavid out there, it's like, yeah, except for when you're looking for similar cap percentages as those guys, right? Like, when you're looking, then I'm going to compare you to how I feel watching those players.
You're
like,
right.
there is a Leafs component to this.
Marner has branded himself, to your point, as being on the same tier as them.
Yeah, exactly.
So prove it.
Yeah. Go
I
prove
agree.
to me in this game that you feel like a player of impact and a player of note in this tournament. Because now...
And here's the thing. You're playing with all the best players in the world.
Yep.
So there's no excuse. There's no, he has to, make his own line or, like, work with whoever. I don't care. I don't care.
You know what it reminds me of?
Not with Matthews in this situation, but...
It actually reminds me of F1, where you know who the better driver is because he's posting better results in the same car. And here you have all these players that are side by side in the same car together, and you get to look at them and say, all right, let me see what Braden Point looks like on Team Canada versus Mitch Marner in the same situation for Team Canada. And Point looks better. He just does. He looks more impactful. His game looks more layered. And so that's just the way that this is going to work. This is the way that this thing's going to operate. And I'm sorry to the small sample size. I can't do anything to control that. I can only judge what I see in front of me. And so far for those two players, I think it's been pretty disappointing. Okay, Jackie Redmond of the Jackie Redmond Show, TNT, all the things. Enjoy the game tonight. I'm sure I'll be texting you. Thanks for making time.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. Go Canada, go.
Go Canada, go indeed.